afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming after lunch. The title sounds quite aggressive, but I'm not going to be able to make it aggressive because it's still a jet lag for me. I just came from New York yesterday, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning for me now, so I'm a little bit sleepy. But the subject is going to be quite aggressive because I will try to show you from a practical experience and from a theoretical standpoint of why I think meetings, which are something which you probably definitely know and you see in your projects, is actually a bad thing. So I'm not going to say that that there are different ways of doing meetings, and I'm not going to suggest I'm not going to give any advices of how to make meetings good and how to make them more effective. Instead, I'm going to say that meetings in general, in software projects, because this is my experience, I work with software projects, in general, they are bad things. So we should stay away from them, and we should not have meetings in our projects, because they actually, like the title says, they actually do a bad thing to the project. They do a good thing for project members, but at the same time, they ruin the project. And before I start, I would like to ask, how many of you think that meetings actually help? How many of you think stay on the green side of this slide? Could you please raise your hand? Okay. And how many of you think that there is a red aspect, that there is actually a bad thing from the meetings? Okay, let's see, do we have this balance, and let's see what we have in the end of the presentation. So we have 45 minutes. I expect questions in the end, so I'm going to try to speak for about 25, maybe 30 minutes. A little bit background about myself. So I'm not a teacher, I'm not a coach, I'm not a trainer. I'm a CTO and a founder of a software company. So we develop software every day, and we write code for our customers. It's a custom software company. There are a few numbers which you see. We're working with freelancers, all of our programmers, about 100 people, 50 of them are Java programmers actively working, and 50 of them not so active. So we work with freelancers from different countries, different places. We manage them, we control how they work, we ensure the quality of their results, and all our people, they work remotely, and all projects are extremely distributed. So we don't have a central office where people sit together and have meetings and discuss things. We work with people who are very widely distributed over the world. We're doing this actively for about 2 years, maybe a little less. So these are the statistics of the last 2 years. So we've done 25 projects, some of them are still in progress. This is the amount of people. In total, there was, in all the projects, about 150 people to participation. 8 customers who are actually paying us and who are actually giving us money for all this development. And we created about more than 300,000 lines of code, mostly Java code. I'm saying to you all this to show that this is the practical experience. And in all of these projects, we've done 0 meetings. So we never had any meetings between these programmers at all. Is it enough? Do these numbers convince you enough, or I still need to explain why I think meetings are bad? I think I have. So this is a summary of what I think. So I think that meetings are actually stealing money, time, and resources from the project, and in general, meetings are a theft for a project. So when we're doing meetings, when we talk informally, when we discuss things, we are stealing something from the project. This is the summary. This is the main point which I'm trying to prove. And now let's think about why in general people. Now I'll try to prove. Why in general do we need meetings? What's the point of these conversations? What's the point of sitting together in the room and talking to each other? It's always about the question, there's something is not clear for me, something is not understandable, and I need an explanation. If I'm a project manager, I need to put people together in the room and ask them what's going on, what's the status of the project. For example, I don't know what's going on, give me this information. If I'm an architect, I need to put my programmers together in the room and ask them what they're doing right now, how they understand, whether they understand what I understand, whether we understand each other on the technical aspect of the product. or do I understand how you develop this module, or do you understand my idea of this development? So we need to clear things up. If I'm a programmer, I don't know exactly how this module works, so I need to sit together with somebody with the room, another programmer, and ask how this module works. Could you please explain it to me? If I'm a tester, I find a bug, I don't know whether it's a bug or a feature, I need to ask somebody, we call a meeting, we sit together in the room or online, in Skype, and we talk and we clear things up. So I need an understanding. I don't understand how it works now, I don't know what it is, I need this information. So the meetings, all of them, we need them because we don't have enough information and we do not understand something clear enough. This is what meetings are for, and this is how it works, and this is how it should work. So the product itself, the project which we're working on, is kind of a knowledge base. So in the center of the project, we have a knowledge base where everybody are supposed to go for the information. So this is how ideally a project should work. In the center of the project, we have a knowledge base where all the information is kept. And everybody who needs to get this information should go to this knowledge base and get this knowledge from there. If I don't understand something, I open the document, I read it, I get this information. If I need to know the status of what's going on, I open some spreadsheet or I open some file and I get this information from there. We need to communicate with the knowledge base, not between each other. So this is what's happening when we have meetings between each other and we need to get this information. We start talking to each other, and the size of the knowledge we have in our heads is growing. We are becoming experts. We are becoming the knowledge storage. So the knowledge base is becoming smaller while we are becoming smarter. So this is how it should be. We have little information, but the biggest amount of information is stored in the project, in the product, in this knowledge base. But in reality, the more meetings we have, the more communications we have between each other, the more information we take away from the project. We steal this information from the project. We steal the time and money which the project is investing into this, everyday work. And we put this information into us. So that's why the title, the meetings, they help us to grow, they help us to become smarter, they help us to become better expert in the projects we're working on. But at the same time, we kill the project, we kill the product, because the knowledge base becomes smaller and smaller. Because it's so easy for us to talk to each other instead of putting this information into the document, which will be understandable by somebody else. So we have, for example, 3 people in the room, and it's way easier for us to just discuss things instead of writing that. And writing, sitting in our different locations, for example, and writing that and putting this whole information into files in order to make this information available for the person number 4. It's more difficult. I mean, it takes more effort. But in the end, it's better for this person number 4, because when he or she joins the project, he will just, or she will just easily get this data from the knowledge base, which is the core, the center of the product, of the project or product. So again, this is what we should have. Small red dots around the big green dot, which is a knowledge base. And this is what we have in reality. This is what meetings are actually leading to. So this is what we're saying to our programmers. So when programmers come to us, when they start working with us, they don't really understand this philosophy. And we're telling them that this is not a school. It means that when something is not clear, well, this slogan means that the project is, the founder of the project is spending money and is investing into the development of something, and we are resources. I mean programmers, technical engineers, managers. We are resources for this project. We are temporary resources which are allocated and organized together in order to produce some result. So the founder of the project, the sponsor of the project, is not paying to teach us, is not paying to train us. It's not a school. We're not running a school here. We're developing, well, in our case, we're developing some software. So our product is the software. And programmers who do this, and managers, and me, myself, we are resources which are allocated in order to produce this result. So the money of the product and the time of this project and everything which the sponsor is spending on us should be spent on growing the knowledge base if it's necessary, if the information is necessary, All the resources, financial and time resources, should be spent on growing the knowledge base, not to train and not to help us to grow. Even though it's required, I understand that we all need this, information, and we want to grow. But this is our personal, desires. This is our personal objectives as programmers or managers or testers. But this is not what the project wants. This is not what the sponsor wants. The sponsor wants the software to be developed. And training us is not the goal of the customer. The customer doesn't need it, doesn't want that. So a little bit back. So when programmers come to us, we're telling them that it's not a school, so we are not going to train you here, we're not going to teach you here. And that's why we don't have meetings. And that's why when some information is required, you should go to the knowledge base of the project, get it from there. And if you cannot get it from there, then you need to find out how to put it there. So a project must acquire knowledge. The project must require knowledge, not people. So what's important for the project, what's important for the customer, for the sponsor, is to acquire this knowledge which is required and to put it in the knowledge base, not to train us. And now I'll give you practical examples. So how this technically works. How we can replace meetings. Like I told you, over the last 2 years, we don't have any meetings. We haven't had any meetings at all. So how do we replace meetings and how we actually resolve this questions and how we give answers and how we provide the information which is missing. So let's say a programmer is working on a module which this programmer is supposed to implement, but there is no enough information of how to do that. A traditional approach would be to call a meeting, to ask people around who has some knowledge about that, who probably already working on this product for some time, who has this information, gather this information from these people, and then continue work. This is a traditional way. But we don't allow that. We're saying it's not a school. We're not going to train you. We're not going to help you become a better developer and more informed developer. We just don't have resources for that. So we ask the programmer that he should always blame the project for having not enough information about the task which programmer is working on right now. That's why we call it blame the project. So I'm a programmer, I start working on it, I have a task, I have something is assigned to me, and I need to work on that, but I don't have enough information. I don't blame myself. I don't blame myself for being not, smart enough and for not having enough information. I blame the project and I say, your knowledge base is not good enough for me right now, and I cannot start working on my task. So we ask programmers to submit new tasks, new bugs, to report problems about the knowledge base, and asking us to fix this knowledge base before they can continue with their tasks. So when the programmer starts working on something, he doesn't blame himself for not having enough information. He immediately sees that, okay, I don't understand how this particular module has to be refactored or designed. I don't have that, so I submit a new task, a new ticket. We're working with ticketing system. I submit a new ticket, a new bug, saying that you guys did not provide me the information which would be enough for me to work on the task I'm working on. So your module A is not documented enough, for example, so that I cannot continue with module B. And then it becomes a problem of the project of how to fix the knowledge base to make it more suitable and more ready and prepared for anyone who would continue to work with module B. And then we have another ticket. So for example, in the beginning we had one task which was work on module B. Now we have two tasks. One task is still there, which is fix the module B, or we have a new task which says the knowledge base is not prepared for us properly. So go back and fix the knowledge base. In the end, the longer we go, the more programmers are involved, the more bugs and tickets we have for fixing the knowledge base. But we still do not allow people to talk to each other and resolve these problems outside of the knowledge base. We do not allow that kind of communications. So always we ask them to go through the knowledge base. So never talk to each other. Don't resolve problems between each other. Always come back to the knowledge base. Submit bugs to the knowledge base and say why this knowledge base is not good enough for you. And we're going to fix it for you. When we fix it for you, when it's good enough for you, you will continue. In that case, the knowledge base is growing, it's becoming bigger, the product becomes way more maintainable, because none of these communications ever happened since the project's beginning. So none of these programmers never discussed anything to each other, I mean, behind the closed doors. They never had meetings, they never discussed anything on this, on that direction. They always communicated that way. In some projects we have programmers who even don't know each other. I mean, they literally don't know each other. They only see their tickets, asking for information and they provide information. Asking for fixes and they provide the fixes. So completely disallowing that way of communications, completely prohibiting meetings, we grow our knowledge base to an extremely, I mean, the knowledge base we have in our projects are so much bigger than in any other software projects we've seen, I mean, I've seen in my practice. And it's all happening because we're asking programmers to never blame themselves, but blame the project, which is also very, I mean, it's a very constructive way and very, it's very respectful way of treating programmers, because normally people who join the projects at the beginning and who join the team in the beginning, they feel very isolated and they feel very uninformed for quite a long time. You know that this traditional situation when the programmer joins the project, it takes about 1, 2, sometimes 3 months before the programmer gets up to speed and can start actually writing code. It's happening only because people have these meetings which encourage us, which motivates us, meetings. They motivate us to keep information to ourselves, to keep information in our heads instead of putting this information into the knowledge base, into the project. So we have this, you've probably seen these situations. We have a project which runs for a year or 2 years, and they're knowledge experts, people who know everything about this code. They are the people who you will never be able to fire them and to change them and to replace them. They know everything about the product, and if somebody new comes in, this person is in a big trouble for a few months, because it's so difficult to get the information out of the heads of these people, to ask them what's going on, and they kind of feel threatened if you start asking them, because they feel that it's a job security question for them. They don't want to share this information. They acquire this information, not the project acquire the information, but these people acquire knowledge. So we have these knowledge experts which acquire the knowledge and they hold this knowledge, and it makes so difficult for newcomers to actually be respected in the project. I mean, they don't feel respect enough until they really get up to speed in a few months, or maybe like even half a year, they get up to speed, and then they will be able to say that I understand how this thing works, and then I'll be able to contribute and feel equal in this situation. In our case, it's completely different. When anyone joins the project, they start, these new people, they start writing code the next day, and all they have, all the information they need, they get from the knowledge base. They get from the source code. We keep the knowledge base. I'm talking about source code and ticketing system and wiki pages and sometimes shared documents. That's what I'm talking about. So all the data, all the information we need stays over there. So new people just come in and they immediately feel equal in the project. They don't feel like they're minor and they're superior people to them. They don't feel like I'm just a newcomer for months and then there are experts over there who I need to respect for like half a year until they get to their level. I immediately jump in and see that I am one of these red dots. So I'm a little bit smaller, you're a little bit bigger, but it doesn't really matter because the biggest dot is in the center. Because the biggest piece of information is in the center, it's a knowledge base. I just look at it, I open it, something is not clear to me, I just say, I don't understand it, and I submit a bug about it. So it's not happening like this. The knowledge base is in a traditional projects, in traditional environment, like I just said, people are experts, and the project is really something small, and new people are not really respected. So I'm close to the end. And this is a summary. So I think that it's not just in my particular situation, because maybe you may say that, you know, you're working with freelancers and people are remote and they're not collocated in the same place, and that's why it works for you. But I think it's applicable, and this approach, this principle, is applicable to any project, not even a software project. The meetings in general is basically, like I just said, they steal from the project. They steal money and they steal time from the person who is sponsoring the project. The person who is sponsoring is paying, is investing into developing the product, into developing the software, or building a house, or I don't know, building a rocket. So, and we are, by meetings, we're taking this money away and training ourselves. We're just using the money which are supposed to be invested into the growth of the knowledge base and the product. We're taking this money away and talking to each other and training each other. So this is, I think, conceptually, fundamentally, is wrong. And if we can avoid meetings, it's not easy, it's not so well. I've spent like 5 years of research before of that. We spent time, we tried, it didn't work in the beginning. But if you manage to do it that way, if you manage to organize your programmers, their communications within them, the way that they talk, instead of talking to each other, they start talking to the product, they start talking to the knowledge base, using source code, using ticketing system, using wiki pages or shared documents, then you will see that your product, your knowledge base and your product will start growing in size, and the maintainability of the whole solution will also grow. So you will stop stealing money and will start investing them right. So now my question again, so how many of you still on the green side? Raise your hand. And, the question again, so how many of you think that still the meetings, they actually help us, I mean programmers, to become more knowledgeable, to become better experts, to become better? That's true. I agree, me too. And how many of you think that actually, like I just explained, meetings are actually killing the projects and making a damage to the project? Still the same number, huh? Okay, so then your questions, I'm done. Yeah.
What about the creativity of the people when they talk to each other and they have some kind of a synergy about the solution that they want to use, and how do you approach that in your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, speaking from the practical experience, this creativity thing is really important, and sometimes it's required, but it's about 1–2% of time. I mean, 1–2% of questions actually require some really creativity, which can only be achieved by actually sitting together and talking. This is like really, really small percentage, and in most cases, we are just, I mean, in my situation, we're just developing software. We're not inventing something. We're not building. We're not doing, a research of something. We just have requirements, and we need to implement that requirement. So we just don't need that task which will require real creativity. I mean, the creativity which is not manageable, which is not possible to put in a document. If there are two people and they need to, for example, design a database schema. So I have my ideas about how this database should be designed, and somebody else has ideas about how this database. I put my ideas on the document, I design the schema, and I upload it somewhere. Another person takes it from there, makes comments, and I see these comments. I make corrections, I post them back. Just like it works on GitHub on open source projects, for example. You just post your changes, I post your changes, we exchange these changes, and finally we have some results.
Another question following that, because this takes time. And on the project, you usually want to communicate quickly, make decisions quickly, and go forward. And with an approach that you suggested, it will, in my opinion, create some delays to get the solution right, to introduce another set of changes, instead of getting things right up front and then moving forward.
That's true, yes. On the short term, definitely it will be faster. On the short term, we can easily sit together, three of us, we just discuss, we make a decision, decision is made. But it's just for one specific decision. But let's think about tomorrow, when somebody else joins us, or somebody else just and I forget why the decision was made. And then I need to sit together again. We need to move this, we need to organize the meeting again. And then in a month, we need to get back to this decision and understand why the decision was made. I have no idea why it was made. The whole team may be changed. So meetings are good for, this is true, for the short term, they're fast, they're quicker, but in the long term, if we are talking about the project which keeps running and running, then the more meetings we have, the longer each of them will take and take and take. Because the information, we're basically losing the information. We're keeping them in our heads instead of papers. And every time we need to get back and explain again. Like sit together and start from scratch and explain again. So this is, again, from my practical experience. The question is over there.
How how do you do preparation for the developers, or how do you do a task assignment, and how do you prepare a work for the developers?
Well,
Because I guess you have to have a god who prepare a small task from a big requirements and assign them to the developers that don't talk to each other.
Well, no, we don't have a God. We that's a good question. We created a system for, we have a software for it, and we have some principles for that. So we manage, this is our innovation, this is what we've done. This is a little bit out of scope of this presentation, will take some time to explain, but the key principle is that we allow programmers to create tasks for themselves. So when the project starts, or for example, we have one task which is of this size, we just assign it to somebody, and this somebody is allowed to create new subtasks, saying that I need this, and that, and these subtasks they go to somebody else. So we basically allow programmers to do this pyramid, of creating tasks. But in the end, in the end. Back to the scope of this presentation, when the task is assigned to you as a programmer, you're allowed to say, the situation is not good enough for me to continue with this task. Please fix this, and that. Put the documentation over here, because I have no idea how this module works. And also put this documentation here. And also ask somebody else to refactor this module. When these 3 pieces are done, I will continue. And you, as a programmer, is allowed to say that in multiple tasks. So we create, in some projects, we have thousands of tasks.
I think it's an important aspect of your presentation, because what I really cannot imagine is what is the way of the requirement from the customer to the developer. Well, customer wants something, and what is the way of the requirement when a developer starts to work on it?
Well, we communicate with customers, we ask customers to communicate the same way as developers communicate to each other in ticket system. So we have ticketing system, you know what ticketing system is. It's like we submit a ticket, you have a number of this ticket, we use GitHub for that. So GitHub, they have the pretty powerful and quite simple ticketing system. So the customer submits a ticket over there. The customer says, I want this amount of requirements to be implemented. I want this new feature to be done on the website, and I want this new report and PDF format to be able for download. And then this task goes to the programmer, one of the programmers. So we have a project manager, and project manager assigns this task to the programmer who is suitable for this task. The programmer starts working, and the programmer sees, okay, in order to implement this I need, and then I just explain, in order to implement this I need probably something else. And then we create more tasks. The programmer creates this, and that. And then now we have not one task, we have 7 tasks. And then these 6 tasks, they get assigned to 6 programmers, or maybe like 3 programmers, 2 each. And then they say, you know what, in order to fix this module, which is required by this guy, I cannot continue because something else is not fixed. So we have like the big, I would say, the big pyramid of tasks. And in the beginning of projects, there are many of them, sometimes hundreds of them open. And then we closer to the end of the project, they keep closing, and the knowledge base is growing. And in the end of the project, if you look at the information we have in GitHub and the information we have in our source code, it's so beautiful, it's so many documentations, everything is so clear, so that the customer, when the customer looks at it, they usually say like, this is amazing, we have never seen it before, because usually people give us the code which only these people can understand. In our case, the code comes back to the customer, which is already understood and tested by so many different angles, by so many different developers, who had so many opportunities to say, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like how this is done, I don't like how it's explained, it's not clear for me. So we fixed all of that, and when it comes back to the customer is so happy, because the customer knows that the team around this code is completely replaceable. The customer is not attached to the team anymore. The team is just, like I said, just a resource which is replaceable. The customer hired the team did the job, the team can go, but the product stays. And it's not disrespectful way to developers. Maybe some of you may think that like, hey, this guy doesn't like the developers, he thinks they are resources. But it's quite the opposite. I think this is the more respectful way, because we respect developers way more than traditional teams where people are not able to say that I don't like something in this code, and this is my problem to fix everything. We are saying that always blame the project. Always blame the knowledge base. The knowledge base is not good enough, the code is not good enough, don't touch it. Wait for it to be fixed. And in this way, it gets better and better.
Okay, thank you.
Two questions here.
So I'm interested how you approach the search of your knowledge base. You mentioned you have several systems. And the second question is how you fight obsoleting documents, obsoleting information because stuff changes in time. And I can imagine that after a year down in the project, it might be tough to start just reading some random documents that might be outdated even.
Yeah, it's a good question. It happens organically. So we have in most cases, we have like 20, 25 programmers working at the same time with this knowledge base, which is code and documentation. And all of them, they touch this code from different angles. I mean, every piece of code is sometimes being, somebody pays attention to this piece of code. And it's just happening organic. Well, there's one thing which actually motivates everybody. We pay people for creating bugs. So we say, if you find a bug in the knowledge base, report it, we're going to pay you for it. So which actually motivates everybody who is seeing this knowledge base to report, to blame it. So we are saying, blame the project, and the more you blame the project, the more money you will get. So we are motivating programmers not only to work and do the job which is assigned to them, but find the problems in the existing piece of documentation code and report it to us. And they do. And they do it, and they do it a lot. I mean, sometimes some of them trying to abuse us and abuse the system and report some stuff which is not really a bug. But we have project managers, we have architects who are like people who are overseeing this whole process, and they're saying this is not a real good report from you, this is not a real bug, this is how it should be. And it happens sometimes. But in most cases, it just works because people are touching this knowledge base so many times every day, and they have so many opportunities to find what is not right there and report it to us and get money for it, that we just don't see this situation with some obsolete pieces of documentation, which is the waste, which most projects have. And another question, how we search the information. It's just the GitHub, just the search functions there, and we do search. And some of our projects are not so small. Like we have projects who are for about like 2 years so far, about 2,000 tickets already, and like many lines of code, and not just many lines of code, but so many changes made there. Because we do all the development in GitHub through pull requests. So we have so many these pull requests and changes, and it's multi-branching development. So the knowledge base is quite big. But how to search through it? It's just normal, GitHub functionality. We didn't invent anything there.
I think it's quite a radical idea, but to realize how it would help, I think, a lot of us if we could see how it really looks. Could you maybe show part of the knowledge base to us so we could think for ourselves if we use it too?
There's no secret. It's just source code and ticketing system. Look at the Jira, for example, or look at the Trello, or look at the GitHub. It's just normal things which people are...
I mean, the content. Let's say I would come to your company and try to join and find the information. I would have to look into the knowledge base. I would like to see how it actually looks like.
We have, among these 25 projects, we have about 10 of them who are open source. So come to me after the presentation, I'll give you the names of them, and you can go to GitHub, they're open. And you will see how we manage them right now. So it's happening right now. Some of them are in the active development right now. So everything is open, and this knowledge base is open, and you can see how we communicate with programmers, and how they report bugs, and how we pay them for these bugs. So everything I said is like openly on GitHub, and you can see how it happens. So
Thank
just
you
come to me,
very
I'll give
much.
you names. Yeah.
How will you address the information which is not directly tied to a particular project, like coding guidelines, best practices, stuff like that?
Good question. I believe that there is that everything should be in the project and should be attached to the project. The coding guidelines and all these the requirements for the quality of code. When we start the project, we create an infrastructure for that. We create this. We put these requirements into the project repository and keep it together with the project all the time. So I strongly against any information which should stay outside of the project. I think that the knowledge base should include everything which is related to the project. Which means that if I replace all the red dots, if I replace the whole team, and I still just have the product in front of me, the product with all the repository, with all the artifacts, documents, source code, there's discussions, everything, then I can put new people around it, and new people will be they will be on the same page as the previous team in just in a few minutes or maybe a few hours. So nothing should be outside and say, you know what, this is our project, and there are also guidelines for the company of how we write Java code. That's what you meant, right? So there's the guidelines, which is how we, in general, as a company, develop Java code, and this is the project which is run by us, and we develop it because we have the guidelines. In this case, remove me and with my team, and you as a customer is in trouble because you don't have these guidelines. Because you need to, again, find another team, and then how are we going to explain to the new team what the guidelines were? You're in trouble. So that's why we need to, when we start the project, we put all our guidelines, if we have them, into your repository. It's yours as a customer. And then we start working with them. So we don't keep anything outside of the project. All the information should stay, together. We have 5 minutes.
I have a question of what's your opinion on one thing. I pretty much understand the concept that you invented, and it kind of makes sense to me from the business point of view. As you just said, the customer doesn't care about who and how is developing the product as long as the product is delivered. But from the employee point of view, I kind of see a flaw in that. You said that you are using contractors, which means it's not in your view or not in your field of responsibility to make the developers better. But what about the companies that have actually full-time employees, full-time developers, and each and every developer that joins the company kind of expects the company to help them grow? Because when I come from school, I'm a junior, I expect the company to help me get to senior level at some point. Using this model, I cannot really imagine that, because it just said the developers are not communicating to each other at all, which means it kind of blocks me from growing because I cannot use knowledge of others. Not on the project, but on the programming itself, on the skill level. So what's your point on that? Like, are you kind of caring about developers in your company, or not at all? Are you not looking at that?
I do care. I'm a developer myself, so I write code myself, so I understand what you're talking about. This is definitely true that we don't train them, we don't teach them, there's not a school. And we just tell them about that up front. So we're saying, well, we don't care about your learning, and we don't care about your career and everything. You should care about that. That's what we're saying. So this is your personal objective. And we create you an environment where other professionals, experts, they work together. I mean, that they work together on the same source code. They don't talk to each other. Nobody's gonna sit next to you and explain how to write this piece of code. You can get it from internet, go to Stack Overflow, or buy some book. Just learn it the way people usually learn stuff, not from peer experience. And so I believe that, well, again, I can speak from my experience, what's happening, what I see what's happening. So people join us and they start working, and 99% feedback I'm getting is that I'm so glad to be here. I see that the development is so professionally organized, and it's so different from everybody else, that instead of this babysitting, nobody is babysitting me, they're just giving me complex, challenging tasks. And they ask me to communicate in a disciplined way to the whole team. Not just go to the other room and shake somebody's shoulder and ask, like, please help me. But explain your problem in the ticket. Expect the proper answer. So that people are, in general, so happy to be there. So I think that they're growing. Because I think this way of development is way more professional, way more disciplined than sitting together and teaching each other. We also, there's a typical question of what's happening if, for example, there's another situation. Let's say I go to the project, I have a knowledge base, I start working, and then I see that the knowledge base is fine, but I'm not smart enough to implement what I need to implement. So what's happening in that case? and I'm a Java programmer, but my level is not so high as for the product requires. In that case, we're telling them that nobody's going to help you here, but there are resources on the internet. Go to Stack Overflow, post your question over there, or go read some book. Just prepare yourself. I mean, you're on your own. Nobody's going to help you, but we are all encouraging you to prepare yourself. We gave you the task, which is challenging, which is waiting for your response. Just train yourself. So I strongly believe in self-motivated professionals. You know, when people who are motivated enough to learn instead of being just in a group and learn because they are in the group. So that's probably the answer.
I would like to ask, how can I find a person who can explain some part of documentation what I cannot explain? I mean, I created a ticket for some documentation. Hey, explain me this shortcut. I don't know what does it mean, and how do you find the owner for the ticket? I mean, there are 30 people on a project, and do they search for the new tickets and answer this ticket, or is there someone who is processing these tickets to the developers?
If I understand your question right, you're asking of how to find the right person to answer my question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's a good question. I believe that the knowledge base should be good enough. So that anybody can answer any question. So when we submit a bug, for example, I start working on something, I don't understand how this module works, for example. And then I submit a bug and asking like, this documentation is not good enough for me, it's not complete, I don't understand by this just a few lines of text. I don't understand how this big module works. So please write me a bigger documentation. And then we assign this to the randomly selected person. So we don't have people who are like, this is the expert in this piece of code and this is an expert on that piece of code. We just assign this to a randomly selected person. And that person has to find out how to explain this module A. And if he cannot explain, he will just go deeper and ask like, okay, explain me this piece, explain me that piece. So we need to make sure that the knowledge, that the code we create is understandable, easily understandable by everybody, randomly selected. So we are strongly against knowledge experts, so-called. So we don't want to have knowledge experts. We don't want people who know too much about this piece of code and too much about that piece of code. Because it's just bad for the project. Because if I lose this person, I lose a lot of information. I cannot replace this person. So all the people should be replaceable, and sometimes, and quite often, we rotate people. So we take them away from some project and put it somewhere else. And we put new people on the project. And that's how we guarantee to our customers that these people are replaceable, that the knowledge is in the product, is in the source code, not in the heads of our people. So that's why we don't select who's going to answer the question. Anybody should be able to answer the question, randomly selected. Again, it's not so easy to achieve. I'm speaking from an experience of about 5 years, and it's about 5 years of experiment and 2 years of practical work. So it's not going to be able to, like, so easy to achieve tomorrow. But this is the strategy. That's what I'm saying. So I'm encouraging you to think that direction. So having this, many people are on this conference. I'm not sure about this conference, but I'm hearing it a lot on different conferences. People are saying that it's so important that to train people. It's so important to build teams. It's so important to invest money into improving people. I'm saying quite the opposite. It's absolutely not important. We shouldn't do that. Instead, we should rely that people will be professionals by themselves. Let them train themselves and make sure that they are respected. And make sure that the project is organized professionally. In this way. So we organize proper channels of communications between these people, not between them, but between them and us. Us by the knowledge base, by the product. So they should be able to seamlessly and easily communicate with the main storage of information. And that's how they become way more professional, and they will really they will like to work in this project way more than anybody else, anyone else.
I'm afraid we are out of time.
It's time? Okay, thanks. You can come to me, I'll give you my business card, we can talk more. Thanks for coming.